The story of Samson, a tale of strength, betrayal, and redemption. From the book of Judges, chapters 13 to 16. Long ago in the land of Israel, there was a man unlike any other, a man chosen before birth, a man of great strength and a man of weakness alike. His name was Samson. Before Samson was born, his mother was visited by an angel. She had been unable to have children, but the angel told her, "You will have a son. He must never drink wine, eat unclean food, or cut his hair, for he is set apart for God. Through him, Israel will be delivered from its enemies." She told her husband, and soon the prophecy came true. Samson was born, and as he grew, the Spirit of the Lord filled him with great strength. He was unlike any other child, stronger, faster, and fearless. One day, as Samson walked through a vineyard, a young, roaring lion jumped out at him. Samson had no weapon, but the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he tore the lion apart with his bare hands. It was as easy as tearing a piece of cloth. He did not tell anyone about it. Later, when he returned to the place, he saw that bees had made a hive inside the carcass of the lion. He scooped out some honey and ate it, even sharing it with his parents, but without telling them where it came from. From the beginning, Samson's parents warned him not to marry a Philistine woman because the Philistines were Israel's enemies. But Samson was stubborn and insisted, "She pleases me well." His love for Philistine women blinded him from obeying the will of God. During his wedding feast, he gave the Philistine guests a riddle: out of the eater, something to eat; out of the strong, something sweet. If they solved it within 7 days, he would give them 30 expensive clothes. But if they failed, they would owe him the same. For days, the Philistines tried to solve the riddle, but they could not. They grew frustrated and decided to threaten his wife. "Find out the answer, or we will burn the house of your father down with you in it." Scared, she cried and begged Samson every day. She told him she would never be happy unless he shared the answer with her. Finally, Samson gave in. But as soon as she learned the answer, she betrayed him and told the Philistines. On the 7th day, the Philistines answered, "What is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion?" Samson immediately knew he had been deceived. Enraged, he shouted, "If you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle." In his anger, Samson went to another town, killed 30 men, and took their clothes to pay his debt. Then, in anger, he moved away from his wife and returned to his father's house. But the story was not over. Sometime later, Samson calmed down and decided to return to his wife. But when he arrived, her father told him, "I thought you hated her, so I gave her to another man." Samson was furious. The betrayal made him burn with anger. He wanted revenge on the Philistines, so he did something incredible. He caught 300 foxes, tied their tails together in pairs, and attached burning torches to them. Then he set them loose in the Philistine fields. The foxes ran through the wheat, setting the crops on fire. The flames spread to the vineyards and olive groves, burning everything down. The Philistines' entire harvest was destroyed. The Philistines were very furious. They wanted revenge. So they went and burned the wife of Samson and her father. When Samson heard this, he was even more upset and angry. He killed many Philistines with his bare hands before escaping to a cave in the land of Judah. The Philistines went to capture Samson, but the men of Judah, fearing trouble, tied him up and handed him over. As they brought him to the Philistines, the Spirit of the Lord came upon him. He broke the ropes like they were threads. Looking around, he found the jawbone of a donkey. With it, he killed 1,000 Philistine warriors. The ground was covered with bodies of fallen enemies. When he was done, he threw the jawbone away and called the place Ramath Lehi, meaning hill of the jawbone. One night, Samson visited the city of Gaza. The Philistines waited at the city gate to capture him in the morning. But at midnight Samson woke up, went to the city gates, and ripped them out of the ground doors, posts and all. He carried them on his shoulders to the top of a hill, leaving the Philistines in shock. Even after being betrayed by his first Philistine wife, Samson did not learn his lesson. Once again, he fell in love with a Philistine woman, this time a woman named Delilah. The Philistine rulers saw this as an opportunity to finally defeat Samson, who had become their greatest enemy. They went to Delilah with an offer of great wealth to find out the secret of his strength, and we will each give you 1,100 pieces of silver. Delilah was tempted by the huge sum of money. Instead of truly loving Samson, she saw this as her chance to get rich. One evening, Delilah softly asked Samson, "Tell me, my love, how can you be tied up and made weak?" Samson knew that the Philistines wanted to defeat him, so he played along and lied to her. Samson knew that the Philistines wanted to defeat him, so he played along and tricked Delilah. First trick, Samson said, "If you tie me up with 7 fresh strings, I will become weak like any other man." That night, while Samson was asleep, Delilah tied him up with 7 fresh strings. Then she shouted, "Samson, the Philistines are here!" But Samson broke the strings easily, just like breaking a thin stick. He was still as strong as ever. Second trick, Delilah begged him again, and Samson said, "If I am tied up with brand new ropes that have never been used, I will lose my strength." That night, Delilah tied Samson with new ropes while he slept. Again she shouted, "Samson, the Philistines are here!" But Samson cut the ropes apart as if they were made of soft thread. He was still too strong to be captured. Third trick, Delilah kept asking, so Samson told her, "If you weave my hair into a loom and tighten it, I will be weak." That night Delilah wove his hair into a loom while he slept and pinned it tight. Then she shouted, "Samson, the Philistines are here!" Samson woke up and pulled away, taking the loom with him. He was still as powerful as before. But Delilah did not give up. She wanted to find his real secret. Delilah refused to give up. She nagged him day after day, telling him, "How can you say you love me if you do not trust me? You have lied to me 3 times now." She cried and pleaded with him every single day. She used his love against him, making him feel guilty for keeping secrets from her. Finally, Samson became tired of her constant pressure. He was worn down, and in a moment of weakness, he told her the truth. "My strength is in my hair. I have been set apart to God from birth. If my hair is shaved, I will be weak like any other man." Delilah immediately knew this was the truth. That night, as Samson lay asleep on the laps of Delilah, she called for a man to shave off his 7 locks of hair. As each lock fell, God-given strength left Samson. Then Delilah shouted once again, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." Samson woke up, thinking he would fight like before, but he did not realize the Lord had left him. His strength was completely gone. The Philistines seized him, gouged out his eyes, and took him away in chains. Blind and weak, Samson was taken to prison, where he was chained like a common slave. Day after day, he was forced to grind grain at the mill work that was meant for animals. His powerful arms, once feared by his enemies, now turned the heavy grinding stone in endless circles. The mighty warrior of Israel had been reduced to a prisoner, humiliated and broken. The Philistines rejoiced. They held grand feasts, singing and dancing in celebration of their victory over Samson. The once great champion of Israel was now a source of entertainment. They mocked him, throwing insults and reminding him that his strength was gone. "Where is your power now, mighty Samson?" they jeered. But even in his suffering, something was happening. The hair of Samson was growing back, and though he had lost his physical strength, his faith in God was being restored. One day, the Philistines held a great feast to celebrate their victory. They brought Samson out to mock him in their temple, which was filled with thousands of people. Samson, blind and humbled, prayed, "Lord, remember me, strengthen me once more." He placed his hands on the two great pillars of the temple. With all his might he pushed. The pillars cracked, the temple collapsed, and everyone inside, including Samson, perished. In his final moment, Samson defeated more Philistines than he had in his entire life. Lessons from the life of Samson. The strength of God is greater than ours. The power of Samson did not come from his muscles, but from God. When he relied on God, he was unstoppable. But when he trusted in himself and his desires, he fell. This teaches us that true strength comes from God, not from our own abilities. Obedience to God matters. Samson was chosen by God from birth, but he often ignored the commands of God. His downfall came because he played with temptation and did not take his calling seriously. We learned that disobedience to instructions of God can lead to painful consequences. Beware of wrong friendships. The greatest weakness of Samson was his love for ungodly women. He trusted Delilah, who betrayed him. This shows us the danger of surrounding ourselves with people who do not share our faith and values. Not everyone who smiles at us has good intentions. Sin leads to suffering. Samson's choices led him into the hands of his enemies. He lost his strength, his sight, and his freedom. This reminds us that sin has consequences, and what seems small today can grow into something that destroys us tomorrow. God is merciful and forgiving. Even after Samson failed, God did not abandon him. When Samson repented and cried out to God, he was given one last chance to fulfill his purpose. This teaches us that no matter how far we have fallen, God is always ready to restore us if we turn back to him. Purpose is more important than pleasure. Samson was meant to be a leader and deliverer, but he spent much of his life chasing after personal desires. His story warns us that if we focus only on what makes us happy and ignore our God-given purpose, we may waste the great potential God has placed in us. Victory belongs to God in the end. Samson did not defeat the Philistines with his own power. His final act of strength was only possible because he prayed and relied on God. This reminds us that in all battles of life, true victory comes when we trust in the Lord. Would you like more Bible stories? That is true. Samson was the strongest man in the Bible, but he lost everything because he did not obey God and trusted the wrong person. What do you learn from his story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video. Subscribe for more Bible stories, a story at a time. Turn on notifications so that you will not miss the next episode.